Alrighty, we're back in the food forest. It's getting chilly out. See my breath? It's December 4th, and now's a great time to start doing some pruning. And the reason for that is because all the leaves are down and we can start seeing the scaffolding, the framework of the trees, and that makes it a lot easier to prune. And the method I've been using for the last couple of years is something I read on Modern Farmer, and it's a very simple method. There's just a few small steps to it. The first is there's a winter pruning and a summer pruning. And for the winter pruning, for things like apples, pears, let's see, what else do we got? Apples, pears, persimmons don't really get anything. Cherries, similar. Yeah, I mean, apples and pears would be the big one. The winter pruning, you kind of, well, I'll show you. Let me flip the camera around. Okay, so here's an Asian pear. And it's winter time, it's December 4th. So what are we gonna do here? Well, there's like a couple different steps we gotta do. First is to kind of step back, take a look at the tree, take a look at the form, figure out what form you want it to be in. For this particular tree, I'm going for kind of a central leader with small branches coming up, you know, a bunch of big scaffold branches coming off and then a bunch of small kind of fruitwood coming off of that. So the framework looks pretty good, except for like we have one central stem and then we have another, looks like competing stem that also wants to be the central stem. So I may have to like prune that back so it's more of like a bit of a triangle shape. So that's the first step. Second step is to look for any branches that are broken. And as I look at this tree, it looks pretty good actually. So not too many broken branches, which is kind of surprising because we had a lot of fruit come off of this year. So that's good. And then the third step would be to take the new growth, which you can kind of see here. Right, here's previous year's growth, here's this year's growth, much lighter, and we chop that back by half. So just cut that in half. And then finally, we look for any branches that are crisscrossing. Like for example, over here, got like these two branches are touching, they're touching kind of here. You don't really want them to rub because the bark will get rubbed off and the tree could possibly get an infection there. So we'll like, and I've done this before, this tree is stubborn. Cut it back, and then there's a couple other spots, like right there, I think those two are rubbing. And then we've got some like spots over here that are rubbing together. So pretty simple. I like the Modern Farmer method. It's just cut it back by half, you know, the new growth. Look for any branches that are crisscrossing and fix those situations like this, and then that's pretty much it. They keep it simple and I like that. So I'm gonna go about doing this. And the nice part about winter, or in places that have like a proper winter, is that you have a lot of time to do this. So for pears and apples, got plenty of time. For cherries, the story is a little bit different. Those don't like getting pruned in the winter because they are susceptible to getting a fungal disease. So they only like a summer pruning. So I'm going to skip these two back here. So I'm going to do this guy, that's an Asian pear. This guy, it's an Asian pear. And then back in the corner there, I'm going to work on my European pear. That's a Bartlett. And this persimmon I'm just going to leave alone. So this Bartlett I've been working on for a little while, actually a couple of years. It had some problems, like it yields a ton of fruit every year and you can see it bends the branches down really hard. And we had, I think one year where it just snapped. So it snapped in half. And I pruned back a bunch of the branches so that it developed a new central leader. And it's really taken off. If you've ever watched videos by Skill Cult, Steven talks a lot about how pear trees in particular, they really like to go straight up. you can see it. I like pruned it here and it goes straight up. And I pruned it here and it goes straight up. I pruned it here, straight up. So it's a little problematic because for whatever reason, with fruit trees, when they grow straight up like this, they want to continue growing straight up. But when they bend down like this, they make fruit. So there's various methods to do that. You can prune, or you can hang weights, like very light weights, off the tree to get them to kind of bend down like this. And if you can do that, they'll fruit even faster. So for this particular Bartlett tree, I've got a lot of work to do. I can see in here there's a lot of branches that are touching. A lot of them put out like way too much growth this year, so I need to cut them all back by a lot. So, I mean, if you've got a tree that you really like, it's not necessarily a bad thing. Oh, here's some peas that were grown on the tree. It gives you a lot of scion wood that you can graft onto other trees, so one tree provides you with many trees. And, it, you know, I don't know, it is a lot of work, but it does keep them under control and keeps them from fruiting too heavily and kind of snapping themselves in half. I didn't think this was a big issue, and it maybe isn't with trees that are on a standard rootstock, but these trees, you know, this one in particular, I think this one is not. I think this is on semi-dwarf. I would guess this is probably semi-dwarf. These trees were here when I got the place. This is probably semi-dwarf. All these things are semi-dwarf. And they just don't produce the kind of branch thickness that is conducive to holding lots of weight. So you can see like this is pretty thin, and that's pretty thin. It goes way back, and then this branch angle is very steep. So if you have like lots of fruit on this, it wants to just snap the branch off. So like the good thing about semi-dwarf rootstock is that they fruit faster, but the downside is that the tree doesn't make wood that's as thick. It's not as vigorous, and it's susceptible to breaking. And it does spend more of its time, more of its energy making fruit than making wood. Although this one in particular seems to be fairly stubborn. It wants to make a lot of branches. So, got my work cut out for me this winter. This one's going to get cleaned up. The Asian pears are going to get cleaned up a little bit. And I think the one other thing I'm doing is I ordered new scion wood. So I'm gonna put some new branches on here, which is pretty exciting. I bought some really cool varieties. And the other cool thing is on this cherry tree, I decided to graft a plum, a green gauge plum, which I've never tried. I heard it's amazing. You know, you read the descriptions, they always say they're amazing, and you gotta try it for yourself because no one sells it. So I'm gonna graft a plum on here, either on that one or on my little cherry tree over here. I'm not sure which yet, I need to think about it. And then I think over here I got what is that? I got an apricot, I believe. This is a peach tree. So this was a peach tree. It had tons of diseases. I cut it down. It seems to not want to die, so it keeps coming back. So from the rootstock, so I think I'm going to graft an apricot on top of that. So I got plums and cherries on this one. Get an apricot on this one, and yeah, that'll be fun. Like the cherry. I guess I don't know if it's the genus. I'm trying to recall the scientific name of cherries right now. Like Prunus. Yeah, they are like peaches. I think peaches, apricots, plums, and cherries are all in the same family, so you can graft them all to the same tree. So if you have like a big tree like this, you could take some branches and be like, this is going to be the apricot branch, and this will be the plum branch, and this will be cherries, and this will be peaches. So that's really cool. It'll spread out the ripening time a little bit, and you get a lot of variety. So I think that'll be fun to try. All right, I'm going to get at it.